So quiet quitting, does it mean infiltrating your employer's office and planting a resignation letter on their table? Well, no. Actually, it's just a fancy way of saying a very old phrase: laziness. Quiet quitting simply means that you're going to do the absolute bare minimum at your current job. In essence, deciding you're not willing to go above and beyond for your current employer. Let me give you a very simple example. Suppose you're working at a company and your current project is unfinished, but the clock has just hit 5 o'clock, and it's a Friday. So you instantly throw your work phone off a cliff and just vanish from the office into the weekend, living for that party lifestyle of bottles of Blue Wicked and half-eaten cold kebabs for breakfast each morning.
So good and tasty?
At first, this might not seem like a bit of a problem, but it is. It might seem all well and good that you're fulfilling your role with your employer, putting in the hours stated in your contract, but the reality is your employer wants you to go above and beyond. The reason why companies want their employees to go the extra mile is so that they have a competitive advantage against their own competitors. And typically with a good company, if you are putting in that extra work, you would be rewarded, whether that be extra holidays, extra pay, or even a promotion. But there is an increasing trend of quiet quitting coming into focus, which is basically you're sitting at the office waiting for the clock to tick down. Now, what has caused this recent trend and the unbalanced work nature to incur? Well, in most cases, it's actually down to poor management on the employer's part. They may make an employee feel undervalued, overworked, or just simply exploited. And as the British man who invented gravity dictated, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Therefore, for people feeling undervalued at their workplace, they are now retaliating by doing the absolute bare minimum. And again, this is a huge mistake, not only for the company, but also the person who is quiet quitting. Put yourself in the company's shoes. Put yourself in your employer's shoes. Employers will definitely notice that you have changed your mindset and now doing the absolute bare minimum. Every human in humankind history thinks they are special.
I'm not just like the rest of you. I'm better. I am better.
And most occurrences probably do incur at the workplace. We've all been there. But look at this from the other side of the stick. The employer will see you doing the absolute bare minimum and think you're just biding your time until a better opportunity comes along. And that's probably the actual outcome in most cases. But whatever your reasoning may be, there's no winner, there's no victory at any angle in quiet quitting. The employers lose productivity and commitment from motivated employees. And employees will run the risk of developing a very bad reputation within their current sector and market. But let's go back to the root cause and let's see why quiet quitting has become quite popular amongst YouTube and also in the workplace. It all started back in 2020 when that C word actually hit. No, not the C word that ends in a T.
Oi,
the one that ends in a D. Millions of employees were left stranded because economies just simply shut down. And when the world started to reopen back in 2021, the labor market was so tight, employees seemed to have the upper hand. Now, this was led by another phase in the whole rotation of jobs lately, which is called the Great Resignation, where people basically just got used to getting stimulus checks and had too much money, so they quit their jobs and sat at home and played Call of Duty. But for those who did not quit their jobs, those who stuck around because they might have seen the longer term picture, are now in a position where they actually hate their job, and now this whole new movement of quiet quitting is gaining traction. A general manager of National Public Radio recently stated, "Imagine if you knew whatever you do, your boss cannot fire you." That's exactly what's going on here. Amongst this and many other issues, it's overall caused productivity in most nations to massively drop. The excuses are starting to prevail through that people are feeling the tremors and the upset and still sort of getting used to going back to work after the whole pandemic of being locked and working from home. Just give it time. Things will go back to normal eventually. But that is where you're wrong. Things are actually going from bad to much worse. In the USA, the ratio of engaged versus disengaged workers is now at 1.8 to 1, which is the lowest it has been in over a decade. There's been many weird hiring practices throughout the last year or two, and now with layoffs and people being lazier in the workplace, it's going to cause a massive problem in the coming years ahead. Now, this drop in productivity and moreover the emotions of employees has been caused by several indicators. Again, the pandemic, the great resignation, and now the whole, quiet quitting. And let's face it, majority of people still never really adjusted to the whole work from home environment. And I still can't figure how some of these people actually got a job in the first place and function in everyday life. I remember that famous meme of the person who was stuck as a potato in an office call throughout the whole event. And also when a toddler broke onto the scene in a live news stream. Epic times. But another reason why this insane ratio of satisfied versus dissatisfied employees is that actually working online and working from home was a bit of a revelation. They enjoyed going for a cigarette whenever they wanted, or having World of Warcraft open on a second screen while they answer consumer complaints. There's a quote from a department manager which captured this absolutely perfectly. "Since the C word, I feel my priorities, values, and who and what are important to me have shifted drastically. I now leave the office at the end of the day not thinking about what I need to work on when I get home at night. I set boundaries for checking my emails and reaching out to co-workers during non-office hours. Most importantly, I do not feel any bit of anxiety when it comes to requesting time off, taking personal days, or especially taking sick time." Now, this is not bad because I think everybody, if you're sick, should be able to request time off. But reality is, as somebody who works 7 days a week and actually do enjoy working as much as possible, I find this quite hard to do. And moreover, my personal employees, if they didn't reply to an urgent email within a relative time period, even if it was a weekend, then we might have a problem. And it's not down to that person individually. It's just I know I can hire somebody who would also go above and beyond, meaning they would fall down the chain of command at the workplace itself, adding more problems to their mental strain. To top it all off with this statement and the fall off in the economical productivity in the US, Bloomberg's economical models are now showing that there is a high probability, if not already, we are heading into a recession. Meaning that if we do hit a recession, layoffs are going to become apparent. And we've already seen that in companies like Twitter, Tesla, Amazon, Apple, Meta, the list goes on. Companies are laying off people, and if you are a quiet quitter, how far down the line do you think you are? I think something's gonna come apparent very soon with employers. I've worked in the finance sector for pretty much my whole professional career after I left the military. I've worked at several companies and worked for several businesses, and I can tell you, even in these big businesses where reference letters would matter, majority of employers just get a reference letter and never check it up. I think with quiet quitting and the great resignation, a new policy will come in place where every employer purposefully calls your previous director, boss, or whatever it may be. It might become a constraint that you have a leaving letter when you leave the employer, and I need that leaving letter date, signed and stamped by the company's HR department. That way, if you're a quiet quitter, right away, you are no longer employable. I think that companies will make this more prominent as time goes on. It's now not about the quantity of staff you have. It's actually about the quality. So if you are quiet quitting or thinking about it, well, you're leaving yourself disadvantaged, and very soon you could be unemployed. Personally, for me, as somebody who owns several businesses in very different sectors, when I interview people, when I'm asking them, one of the biggest questions I ask is, why did you leave your last job? Why do you want this job? And I need an honest answer here. I need to know it's because of money, or it's the work environment, or I really like your beard. It's beautiful. It needs to be a definite answer. Not that I want to change the world of finance, or I want to do this in the best way possible. Because employers really, we see through that BS. And this mindset will come more common, and reference letters will play a more dominant role when you apply for future jobs. Now, this does come with a kind of caveat, because as more people are working from home, it's harder for a previous employer to actually say if you're a good person, a bad person, or I don't even know what they look like. But the reality is, you will be able to see your numbers as a quiet quitter versus somebody else in the company and say, well, they were ranked in the lower third of productivity of our business when they left. And as an employer, that's what I will be leaving in a reference letter to the employees that leave me or I let go if they are in that bottom third. If they're fantastic, I'm going to do what I can to keep them, but also give them a gleaming recommendation because they earned it. There are some dark times ahead. We've seen with the Great Resignation and now with layoffs and a recession and high inflation, it didn't really work out. Now we have quiet quitting and it's also not going to work out. These movements, these trends about sticking it to the man ultimately will end up hurting the people who need the money most. I understand having a healthy work environment is vital to your mental health, but the reality is if you're not enjoying your workplace, try and find another job and get out of there as quick as possible, or increase your productivity, become better, and hopefully you will be rewarded. Hopefully it will be noticed. And if you're good at something, anything in life, any aspect, you will feel much happier where you are because simply it feels good to be good at something. But moreover, if you are putting in the extra effort and you're working overtime and making sure you're in the top third of the workforce at your current job, when the time comes for little Susie who has a birthday party down the street, you can actually go to that birthday because you're more likely to be given that day off as an extra because you've put in the extra effort. Reality is, in my opinion, those who are quiet quitting are just in a downward spiral looking for an excuse and a way out. If you want to get promoted, if you want to be more successful, you have to put the effort in. That's what it all comes down to. And if you're not willing to, well, you're destined for a very tough life. Employers and companies by no means are innocent in this whole situation either. They could be looking after you better. I get that. But remember, it's always a two-way street. It's never just one way. Whenever I've took a job, whether that's speaking at a conference or working for a financial institution, or even in the military, I always try to leave the place better than when I found it. And that means till the last day, I'm giving my all. And that way, people come back to you. Businesses come back to you to try and rehire you. But moreover, your position and your bank balance should increase over time as you become more in demand amongst workforces. So if you're unhappy at your job and thinking about quiet quitting, just take my advice. Quit your job and just leave. Go find a new workforce and leave with your head held high. Take it from me, I once quit a job in a helium factory when I was younger. There's absolutely no way I'm letting somebody speak to me in that tone. Come on, that was a good dad joke. See you later.